superstar Jayson Tatum for tonight's Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers. Tatum first appeared as questionable on the injury report this afternoon, but the team now says he will not play because of stiffness in his left knee. It's win or go home time for both teams, with tip-off set for 7:30 Eastern from Boston. So let's welcome in our NBA analyst, John Gonzalez here. And John, we spoke a few hours ago when he initially popped up on the injury report. It seemed like the sentiment from you was that you assumed that he would still go. So what was your initial reaction when this news now drops that he's out?
Yeah, a little surprised because, again, after Game 6, Joe Mazzulla was asked about it. He said, don't worry about it. Jayson Tatum is good to go. And then all of a sudden he popped up on the injury report. And for him to be listed as questionable, I thought, okay, well, it's not doubtful. Jayson Tatum, when he can play, generally does play. Before the Achilles injury, he was Mr. Reliable. One of his best skills was just his availability. He was always out there. So this must be something that concerns them enough, obviously, in a critical Game 7, that they're willing to withhold him. But for the Celtics not to have him out there, you know, as we spoke about earlier, that's a big blow to that team. I mean, he's a two-way star. Getting him back was a huge boon to their playoff prospects, and now it puts a lot of, especially on the offensive end, a lot of extra weight on Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard, and we'll see who gets inserted into that starting lineup. My guess is Peyton Pritchard gets moved back into the starting lineup, and then, you know, you're going to get more minutes for, say, a Sam Hauser or a Baylor Shireman, but all hands on deck now because now you're down one of your two best players.
Yeah, and something you pointed out to me earlier is that this knee stiffness is on the opposite leg from the Achilles, but we also had the concern in Game 6. He left the game with some calf tightness. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you a few hours ago. Now, where is your level of worry with his health as this series goes to 7?
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to push it, right? Because the guy's perennially all NBA when he can play, and he came back from his Achilles injury after 10 months, which was remarkable. I mean, that's like a much quicker timeline to return than most people who suffer an Achilles get back onto a basketball court. But then when you saw him sort of like favoring that left leg, even though it's the other leg, you know, he was testing it out. He was stretching it. He was doing little agility drills. He was jumping towards the rim at one point, and then he goes into the back, and you're thinking, okay, well, that's not great. I mean, obviously, you know, the Celtics are up against the wall here. They want to put the Sixers away. They weren't able to do it in Game 6. And then for them to go into Game 7 without him on the injury report and then adding him today, yeah, clearly this thing is not doing well for Jayson Tatum. It's obviously bothering him enough where I can imagine that, like, if it was just about, you know, a pain tolerance, if the doctors had said to him, okay, well, this is, you know, you're going to be fine, it's just how much pain that you can tolerate, then I'm going to guess he would have played in this thing. But for them to shut him down before Game 7, when they might get bounced by the Sixers, who have not beaten the Celtics since 1982 in a playoff series, this is obviously something that he and the team are worried about.
Yeah, and it's something we'll have to revisit after tonight's game, depending on what happens if those Celtics are able to move on. Now, what it looks like in the playoffs with a questionable Jayson Tatum. But as for the here and now, you pointed out Joe Mazzulla does not like to make a lot of adjustments. Does this change the math now that Jayson Tatum is out?
Well, I mean, somebody's going to have to get those minutes, but no, Joe Mazzulla is not known for in-game adjustments. In fact, just before this announcement was made, I was texting with some friends of mine from Boston who are hypercritical of Joe Mazzulla not playing certain guys. They are not fans of Nikola Vucevic, who obviously hasn't given them much at the defensive end. They would like to see more Luka Garza, more Baylor Shireman. Some of the guys who, while Jayson Tatum was out, really stepped forward for the Celtics and helped them end up as the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Don't forget that this was a season when Jayson Tatum went down, where everybody looked at that team and thought, oh man, you know, how are they possibly going to get wins? They're probably going to slide back in the standings. This is going to be a gap year for the Celtics. And the way that it wasn't a gap year for the Celtics, the way that the Celtics looked like the Celtics yet again, there was 2 reasons. One, Jaylen Brown and Derek White were phenomenal this season, especially Jaylen Brown. Derek White's offense, as we discussed, has fallen off. But Jaylen Brown, top 5 MVP candidate for some people, definitely going to make All-NBA, probably second team, phenomenal season. But those were their 2 main guys. And then Peyton Pritchard as sort of like a third option. But all these other pieces that you look at and you go, well, how are they getting any production out of, you know, Neemias Queta went from a role player to an absolutely critical piece in that front court. Again, Baylor Shireman, Luka Garza, Jordan Walsh, you go down, Ugo Gonzalez, you go down the list on these pieces that Joe Mazzulla had used where he was playing 11, 12 guys in his rotation. And then we get to the playoffs and all of a sudden those guys are gone. And so you're thinking, okay, it might be time to go back to the original plan that really helped you guys exceed expectations this season, because you really don't have much of a choice. It's game 7. You're going to need to find production somewhere.
So the line now moves from 8.5 to 5, still in favor of the Celtics. John, I know you said you're not a betting man, but you are a cynical Sixers fan. So how does this adjust the mindset for them, and going into this game now knowing that the team that they have not beaten since the 80s, as you point out, is down their star player?
Are you trying to Jedi mind trick me into picking the Sixers? Because I'm getting closer. Look, the Sixers, again, like, they don't have anything to lose here except for the game, which they've done a million times before, right? But they have really played well in this series. I had this series as a sweep. I didn't think Embiid was going to come back. He came back in fewer than 3 weeks from an appendectomy, which is just absolutely remarkable. That guy, when he always wants to play, but obviously his body has failed him. Injuries that he sustained both in the postseason and before the postseason include the appendectomy, Bell's palsy, a meniscus tear twice, an orbital bone fracture twice, a thumb ligament. But since coming back, he's really given them a boost. And then, you look at the young backcourt, Maxey and Edgecombe. That's the bright spot of this entire season. Maxey's going to make All-NBA. Edgecombe finished third in Rookie of the Year voting. Those guys, I was kind of thinking, like, that might just be the best that it could be for the Sixers. And now all of a sudden they have a chance to beat the Celtics in Game 7 again, something they haven't done in over 4 decades. So whatever happens for them, it's kind of gravy.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I know I also can't because you have been following this team for many years. But John Gonzalez, appreciate you joining us with the latest news that Jayson Tatum is out for Game 7, Celtics and 76ers. We mentioned that it's been a long time since the Sixers have been able to beat the Celtics in the postseason. You see, they did it back in 77 and 68. Those games, though, were in Philadelphia, but it was 1982, the last time the Sixers beat the Celtics. That was in the East Finals. We'll continue to track this breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, but it's time to recap some golf. Round 3 of the Cadillac Championship. Our friends at Scorecard have you covered coming up.
Yes, Sports, Noah Buono. See, I love saying your name. Noah, the 76ers have fought all the way back to force a Game 7 against the Celtics. Paul George turned in his best performance yet. Joel Embiid, near triple-double. And then how about Tyrese Maxey dropping 30 as the Sixers led wire to wire to that win. It's impressive, no doubt, but of course there is a catch here, right? Philly has been in this spot before, down 3-1, and they have never completed the comeback. So Game 7, what are you expecting when everything is on the line?
I really love the momentum that Philadelphia has, and I feel a little scared for a Boston Celtics team that I picked to make the NBA Finals. I think a lot of people picked that, especially with how Jayson Tatum looked coming back. I'm a little nervous about that calf injury on his other leg. It's not the same leg as his Achilles. If there's any chance he feels anything in there, I would just sit him, but I'm not Joe Mazzulla, who is the same guy that is going to live and die by this three-point line. They are 27% in their 3 losses in this series from the three-point line. They're above 40% from the three-point line in their 3 wins. So the recipe is there for what they're trying to do. When it comes down to a player matchup standpoint, Joel Embiid, 3 of his 7 postseason runs has been ended by the Boston Celtics. He's 0-3 in Game 7s, most notably 2023 when they were up 3-2 with a Game 6 in Philadelphia. James Harden was still on the team. They lost that game. They went back to Boston, and they gave up a Game 7 in Boston. So Embiid's been down this road before. He said it in the postgame after Game 6, like, I've lost to these guys enough. There is a momentum and a vibe going on in Philadelphia right now, led by Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and a resurgence of Paul George. Unmatched. And the fact that Embiid was bad in Game 4 coming back, he's now 23 some odd days off that appendectomy, and he got a rhythm in Game 5 and a rhythm in Game 6. Like, I would be really, really nervous if I was the Boston Celtics. I'm not the Boston Celtics, and I'm petrified for him, but I really, really like what Philly's bringing to the table tonight.
All right, well, hopefully our producer Boney was covering his ears doing that. But I will say for the Celtics, they did do pretty good all season long without Tatum, but such a bummer to be without their star if that is the case. The Detroit Pistons also forcing a Game 7. And Noah, they did it in style, down by as many as 24 early in the third before a massive second-half comeback. Cade Cunningham took over 19 of his 32 in the fourth. And really, Detroit just clamped down defensively, allowing just 19 points in the entire second half. It's the fewest in any playoff half ever. And just like that, now it feels like the #1 seed in the East looks like themselves again. Is that a major problem for the Magic heading into Game 7?
Oh, it's a major problem. I don't know how to exaggerate enough of how much of a problem this is for Orlando. And honestly, I'm just going to be as blunt as possible here. The Magic should be embarrassed with themselves. Like, to have that much talent on your team and to only score 19 points in the second half and miss 23 shots in a row. Wake up. Like, what is happening? You have a chance to advance for the first time in the postseason since the 2010 season when Stan Van Gundy and Dwight Howard were part of the organization. Like, they did not seize the moment. They didn't embrace what was in front of them after a brilliant second quarter where they were a plus 24 in that second quarter, outscoring Detroit. But Cade Cunningham is the real deal. He's going to be, if not a first-team All-NBA guy this year, a surefire second-team All-NBA guy. And he hasn't really had a ton of help. Tobias Harris has been great. But what the problem with Orlando is that they have done this before. They got up decently in Game 4, and then they let Detroit go on a 33-11 run. So it's not the first time we've seen them collapse in the postseason. It's definitely not the first time we've seen them collapse in the entirety of this season, because that's how choppy they've been. But this Game 7 comes down to just defensive aggression. That's really where it's going to be. This has been the most blue-collar series of all time. Offense is not really a thing on either side. Clearly, both teams really struggling. But, like, Desmond Bane is the only player on the Orlando Magic that's advanced past the first round in the postseason. Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris are the only players on Detroit's side that have advanced past the first round. So it's not like this Game 7 is going to come down to who has more experience. That's not the case. Who is going to buckle down and play better defense and make the other team uncomfortable the way we watched Detroit do to Orlando in that fourth quarter? That's why Orlando was stifled and couldn't do anything. I worry about their confidence going into that Game 7 on the road. I all but would rule this series over after I saw how Orlando played in that Game 6. And you can say sayonara to Jamal Mosley's job. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Yeah, it looked like the Magic were just completely unserious there in that second half. What was interesting is defensively, I feel like the Magic were almost beating the Pistons at their own game earlier in this series. But of course, the Pistons starting to look like themselves now. And Noah, we can't talk about Game 7 drama without shouting out R.J. Barrett. One of the moments of the playoffs so far, the go-ahead three off the back iron straight down to lift the Raptors to a 112-110 win. It was an instant classic in Toronto. But Noah, did that shot cement Barrett's place in Raptors lore, or does he still need one more big moment in Game 7 to really seal it?
He needs another big moment. I mean, the moment will be cemented regardless of what happens because it has the similarity of the Kawhi Leonard vibe, even though it took, I think, 4 less bounces to go in than Kawhi's buzzer beater in Game 7 back in 2019. But this was a brilliant game by the Raptors. I mean, Jacoby Walter, Scotty Barnes, and R.J. Barrett combining for 73 points. And then the production that this team is getting from some of their role guys, whether it's Jakob Poeltl, Colin Murray Boyles has been great. Jamal Shed has been phenomenal in a few games. And remember, they were without Brandon Ingram. So I really, really appreciate the effort from R.J. Barrett in this game and in this series. And it kind of feels like, you know, whoever is the home team is how this is going to go. Do you want me to quickly give you the Cleveland side of this? Okay, so the problem with Cleveland is Donovan Mitchell is not a playoff riser. And again, I'm just being blunt. We have enough of a data, enough of a sample size. He averaged 28 a game this year on nearly 50%. He's 23 points per game on 43% in this series. Where are you? And let's not even get started on James Harden. I'm going to erase the first 15 years of his career and just bring you back to 2023. The last time he played in a Game 6, he was 4 for 16 with 13 points in that game. In 2026, yesterday, he was 5 for 14 with 16 points. So the problem with James Harden is I don't know what's going on in his brain and his mind leading up to these games, that just the guy that you see in the regular season that's a triple-double machine and a playmaking point guard that can drill step backs in your face and get you a bucket when you need it. I don't know what happens to him. He dissipates. He disappears. When that's your backcourt, to trade for James Harden in the middle of the season and you're going back to Cleveland in a Game 7, that is a problem. And you're playing the Toronto Raptors, a team you thought maybe you'd bounce in the first round. This is similar. The only thing I'll give Cleveland credit for is this is similar to their first-round series back in 2024 with their similar nucleus here, minus Darius Garland. They took the Magic to 7 games, and every home team won every game in that series. They won on a Sunday afternoon versus the Magic to advance to the second round. I do see something similar like that playing out again, Brandon Ingram's out. The Raptors are a new playoff group. But when you have a backcourt like Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and James Harden's making comments about, well, I thought the path to get to the Eastern Conference and getting to the finals was easier. Really? Well, let's see the easiness, because now your back is against the wall. You've blown a 3-2 lead. There's a Game 7 at your hands. And he's been bad in Game 7s. I don't have enough time to run through how bad James Harden's been in Game 7s, but last year alone, when he played on the Clippers, he had 7 points in the Game 7 loss to the Denver Nuggets in the first round. 7 points. I don't expect a different version of James Harden in Game 7 versus Cleveland, and if that's the case, Cleveland could be in real trouble.
Well, look, ask and you shall receive. I said yes, I wanted to hear the Cleveland side of it, and boy, did you give it to me, Noah Buona. Appreciate you, as always, for the time today. And Game 7 history, of course, toward the home squad's 115-40 all-time, including 25-8 in the conference quarterfinals. And while last year we did see some home teams going 3-1, it has been a different story